We are different, but we shouldn't be trying to fit into society.
In the 2011 prequel, X-Men First Class, Mystique, played by Jennifer Lawrence, uses her shape-shifting powers to take on a familiar face.
How about now?
At first glance, Lawrence becoming Rebecca Romijn, who played the character in 2000's X-Men, 2003's X2, and 2006's X-Men The Last Stand, seems like pure fan service. A knowing reference to the previous generation of X-Men movies, not unlike the film's memorable cameo from Wolverine.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lensher.
Charles Xavier.
Go yourself.
But it's also a symbolic moment for the character, one that places Mystique directly at the ideological center of the film, and announces that this version and these X-Men movies will be markedly different.
About time.
Of the many superpowered mutants we meet in the first 3 X-Men films, then again in the 4 prequels that follow, it's Mystique who changes the most in between.
She's my hero. I want to be like her.
We're breaking down this scene as part of One X-Cellent Scene, a collaboration with a bunch of our favorite other YouTubers where each of us has picked one key X-Men moment to analyze. So after you watch this video, make sure to check out all the others. You can even make your own and we'll add it to the playlist. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified about all of our new videos. This video is brought to you by Skillshare, an online learning community where millions of people come together to take classes that fuel their creative journey. If you're one of the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description below, you'll get 2 free months of Skillshare Premium. So become a member today and start exploring your creativity for less than $10 a month. Romijn's Mystique is introduced essentially as Magneto's henchwoman in his epic mutant war against the humans.
You are a god among insects. Never let anyone tell you different.
She uses her body with quiet self-confidence, employing her powers to seduce unwitting enemies and to battle the other mutants. This Mystique is proud of the mutant she is, renouncing all traces of her humanity.
Homo sapien.
First Class reacquaints us with these characters in the 1960s, when they first discover their powers.
It's a mutation. It's a very groovy mutation.
Right away, the Mystique we meet here, otherwise known as Raven Darkholme, is noticeably different.
Mutant and proud. Or is that only with pretty mutations, or invisible ones like yours?
She's insecure about her naturally blue and scaly appearance. She adopts her human guise not to undertake missions, but simply to pass as normal.
Charles has never understood. He's different, but he's never had to hide.
Most importantly, she has yet to choose between 2 radically different visions for the future, which are embodied by 2 central men in her life. Her longtime friend, Charles Xavier, believes mutants and humans can live in harmony.
I tell you, we're at the start of something incredible, Eric. We can help them.
But the charismatic Eric Lensher, the future Magneto, believes mutants must overthrow and replace humans.
We're the next stage of human evolution. You said it yourself.
No.
When Raven attempts to seduce Eric,
This is a surprise.
The nice kind?
then briefly shapeshifts into the woman we recognize from those X-Men films of the 2000s, First Class hints at a future we've already seen play out, where Mystique has already taken Magneto's side. But it also announces that this iteration of her character will evolve differently and play a far more pivotal role than we expect. Let's take a closer look at this scene and how it changes how Mystique sees herself and how we see Mystique. To begin with, Raven isn't just flirting with Eric, she's also flirting with his ideas. When Eric rejects her Rebecca Romijn disguise,
I prefer the real Raven.
she shapeshifts again, back to Jennifer Lawrence. But Eric still isn't satisfied.
I said the real Raven.
She morphs, this time more hesitantly, into her true blue self. Seeing her in her natural form at last, Eric finally approves.
Perfection.
This moment offers a concise distillation of the future Magneto's feelings on mutant pride.
Have you ever looked at a tiger and thought you ought to cover it up?
Eric wants to liberate Raven from humanity, beginning with its narrow standards of beauty.
You're an exquisite creature, Raven.
As longtime X-Men writer Chris Claremont put it in 1982, the story of X-Men is really about racism, bigotry, and prejudice. It's about mutants who are feared and despised simply for who they are and for what they look like. Raven has been living with this internalized shame her whole life.
Hank, this serum that you're making, it doesn't affect abilities, right? Just appearance. Normalizes it.
No.
Do you think it would work on me?
She's adopted these human and specifically Eurocentric ideas of beauty, blue eyes, blonde hair, and white skin, so that she can fit in with a world that fears and rejects her.
What's the matter, baby? You don't think I look pretty like this?
Even Raven's idea of what Eric might find more attractive is simply another version of this same standardized model. By embracing her natural look and finding the unique beauty in her own skin, Raven is symbolically unshackled from the prejudices humanity has placed on her.
All your life, the world has tried to tame you. It's time for you to be free.
It's no coincidence that this revelation takes place in the bedroom. In this scene, Raven is not only embracing her natural beauty, but her blossoming sexuality.
Get out, Raven. I want to go to bed. Maybe in a few years.
When Eric dismisses her, it's with a dig at her maturity. The grown man telling the young woman she's not fully developed enough to comprehend her own body or her desires. For Raven, this is a sore spot. Like many adolescent girls, she's become increasingly concerned with her own attractiveness.
Would you date me?
Of course I would. Any young man would be lucky to have you. You're stunning.
Looking like this.
Changing into the womanly Rebecca Romaine doesn't just create the illusion that Raven is older and more mature. Subtextually, it links this insecure young woman to the confident Mystique we know she will become. The one who wields sex and seduction like a weapon.
It's kind of dirty in here, don't you think?
That's the idea.
When Eric rejects this womanly guise as the put-on that it is, we see the timid, immature Raven return.
Could you pass me my robe?
But Eric assures her that she doesn't need to be afraid or ashamed of the sexual being she's becoming.
You don't have to hide.
As he goes from standing over her to sitting in bed beside her, he implicitly passes from stern father figure into potential lover, eventually leaning in for a romantic kiss. The very next shot is a long, loving pan of Raven, naked in all her blue, scaly glory. That leads into an equally pivotal confrontation with Charles, one that directly parallels their first meeting as children.
You know, sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if you hadn't found me here that night.
Unlike Eric, Charles is embarrassed by Raven's natural appearance and her sexuality.
God's sake, Raven. Where are your clothes? Put some clothes on.
And his reaction creates a moment of clarity for Raven, throwing into stark relief that Charles still thinks of her as a child and as someone who will always be subservient to him.
But I guess pets are always cuter when they're little, right?
This leads to Raven finally realizing where her own beliefs lie.
I used to think it was going to be you and me against the world. But no matter how bad the world gets, you don't want to be against it, do you? You want to be a part of it.
Raven's awakening, physical, sexual, and philosophical, is now complete. In just a few minutes of screen time, Raven embarks on a path that will have great ramifications for her and for the rest of the X-Men. Although she's still willing to fight alongside Charles and the rest of his team, she no longer has the same sense of loyalty.
No more hiding.
She's realized that Charles isn't the idealistic champion of equality he pretends to be. That in fact, he can often be condescending and dismissive.
I thought you'd be in a good mood. Hank, he tells me that he's found the answer to your cosmetic problem. You're gonna tell me what's the matter, or do I have to read your mind?
Meanwhile, Raven's exchange with Eric and her symbolic shift away from Rebecca Romaine also breaks Mystique away from the character we saw in the other X-Men movies, where she was a mostly mute cipher. From here on out, Mystique will be her own mutant.
Mutant? I'm proud.
That characterization of Mystique as a blank slate who primarily exists to do Magneto's bidding has been a common thread in many of the characters' appearances over the years.
You served me well, Mystique. Such loyalty will be rewarded.
The X-Men movies of the 2000s did provide a few intriguing hints about her past.
My family tried to kill me, you pathetic meat sack.
And her motivations.
Then why not stay in disguise all the time? You know? Look like everyone else.
Because we shouldn't have to.
They also touched on the theme of bigotry that underpins the series.
Raven, I asked you a question.
I don't answer to my slave name.
But for the most part, they still depicted Mystique as little more than a loyal servant.
Mystique has discovered plans of a base.
This fits with those films' generally tentative approach to gender parity. There are more female superheroes in the first X-Men movie than the entire first phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I'm always picking up after you boys.
But the women are mostly just pawns in the war between Professor X and Magneto, and even characters who are arguably just as powerful, like Jean Grey,
Go! I'll take care of him!
struggle to assert themselves as protagonists of their own stories.
Was that your gift, putting up with that guy?
Actually, I'm telekinetic. I can move things with my mind.
It's notable here that even Raven's awakening to her own agency is essentially conferred on her by one of these powerful men, then solidified as a reaction to the other. And ultimately, it all seems to hinge on which one finds her attractive.
I don't know what's gotten into you lately. You're awfully concerned with your looks.
Even as Mystique becomes one of the leads of the prequel series, she still finds herself in the shadow of Professor X and Magneto, sometimes even treated like a possession.
I could see why she meant so much to you.
But beginning with this scene, Raven also assumes the pivotal ideological role that Wolverine played in those earlier X-Men movies.
You know, Magneto's right. There's a war coming. You sure you're on the right side?
Like Wolverine, she's generally sympathetic to Charles Xavier's cause, but she becomes cynical about his high and mighty idealism.
I have to. You haven't changed at all, Charles.
Also, like Wolverine, she leaves Xavier, Magneto, and their war behind to follow her own path, ultimately choosing not to take sides.
Where's Eric?
I'm on my own now.
But while Wolverine is fully back in the X-Men fold by X2, Mystique's loyalties aren't totally resolved until the end of X-Men Apocalypse, where she finally becomes a team leader.
You're not kids anymore. You're not students. You're X-Men.
And for most of its run, the X-Men prequel series keeps Mystique's character ambiguous, conflicted, and independent before she ultimately chooses Xavier's team. It's a genuine dramatic arc, as opposed to the first 3 X-Men movies, which end with Mystique as neither hero nor villain, but simply being cast aside.
I'm sorry, my dear. You're not one of us anymore.
Changing Mystique from a shadowy servant into a moral focal point was a bold move for the X-Men series, but it also makes sense for this shapeshifter who can be anything she wants, to embody the metaphorical plight of the mutant universe. We see Raven changing her body and her philosophies, unsure of whether to use her powers to fit in or incite revolution. But eventually, she becomes secure in herself and her purpose. And in the prequel films, she even challenges the very men who once kept her in her place.
And by the way, the women are always saving the men around here. You might want to think about changing the name to X-Women.
When Mystique's story finally ends in this timeline, it's an abrupt goodbye, and some might say a disappointing one for such a central figure. But this time, she goes out as a fully realized character whose loss is deeply felt by the people who know and love her. This time, we feel like we know her too. And it all begins the moment we first see her for who she truly is.
This is you.
Hi everyone, I'm Susanna.
I'm Deborah, and we're the creators of The Take.
Please subscribe and tell us what you want our take on next.
This video is brought to you by Skillshare, an online learning community that offers affordable classes designed to fit your schedule and your skill level. When you join Skillshare, you'll get access to thousands of workshops taught by amazing professionals, and you'll receive feedback and encouragement from your fellow creatives. One Skillshare original you can check out right now is Penny Lane's class on turning found footage into compelling videos. In this class, the award-winning filmmaker will teach you best practices, how to source footage from everything from newsreels to reality TV, and how to edit using Adobe Premiere. Right now, Skillshare is offering our viewers 2 months access to all their classes for free. But that's only if you're one of the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description below. So join today and jumpstart your creative journey.